Hello, everyone, and welcome to the App Fairy podcast. Today, I'm very excited to bring to you an interview with Caroline Ingeborn of Toca Boca.
Toca Boca!
Toca Boca is the app developer that makes the very best play apps that I have seen anywhere. And in fact, honestly, if you have been playing apps with your children and you haven't heard of Toca Boca, I'd be very surprised. I think the last time I checked, out of the top 10 paid apps for kids in the App Store, 10 of them were from Toca Boca. So they are very well respected in Appland, and I'm very excited to talk with them today. In addition to their apps, Toca Boca also has a wonderful email newsletter with great parent tips and information about their apps that you can subscribe to. If you are a subscriber, you might also get a print magazine occasionally in the mail. They had a couple of issues of that last year that were really fantastic. And they even now have a line of non-gendered clothing and accessories at Target. So they are just a fantastic app company that I'm very excited to talk with today. So welcome, Caroline.
Thank you, Carissa.
And I like to start off my interviews with just some basic kind of factual information. So can you tell our listeners where your offices are located?
Yeah, so we have two offices, one in Stockholm and one in San Francisco.
Okay, so you've got two offices. And how many employees does Toca Boca have?
So we have around 60 full-time members today.
Definitely the largest app developer I've talked to so far. So that makes sense as to why you guys have so many really wonderful apps. How long have you, Caroline, worked for Toca Boca?
So I joined on paper in March 2013. But before that, I spent roughly a year and a half helping Emil and Björn, the two founders of the company, in sort of an advisory role. And the summer of 2012, I did something quite unusual. I went to San Francisco and worked together with Björn for 3 weeks, like a trial run, sort of say, of what it would be like. And it was just the two of us in San Francisco working very closely together. And after that period, it was like, okay, we should definitely do this all the time. And then it just took me a very, very long time to leave my previous role. So 9 months later, I came on board full time.
Oh, wow. So you talked about having worked with Björn, that's Björn Jeffries?
Yes.
Yes, and he was until very recently the CEO, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
And you're the current CEO?
No, I'm not. I'm the president and COO. And then our current owners, Spin Master, their co-CEO, Ronen, is working closely with the company.
Let's talk a little bit about your apps. I have one of your stickers that you guys put out a couple of years ago that says, "Take a stand for play." And it's on my laptop, and the sticker was sort of a call to action, and it's honestly strongly influenced my personal and my professional life. I do a lot of work with play at the libraries, and with especially open-ended play and self-directed play, letting kids decide how they want to play. And I know that you guys feel really strongly about play. Can you talk a little bit about the different ways in which you elevate play as the main objective in your app?
Yeah, for us, it's that is always the starting point, asking ourselves, like, what are we going to play? And early on, we looked at the App Store as the toy shelf with a lot of different play patterns that we were exploring and working within. And over the years, there are really 3 play patterns that we found that we are good at. And so we always focus on one of those 3 play patterns, and that is at the core of what we do. And we try to understand each play pattern and where they take place, and follow through on that play pattern. And if we're not, we rigorously test with kids throughout the development process to ensure that that kids are playing, and that is the central objective in all of our products.
Can you tell us what you consider the 3 play patterns?
Yes, absolutely. So it's role playing, It's creative play, and it is experimental play. Examples maybe of our products that are within each is in the role-playing Toca, the Toca Life series is a good example of that. In creative play, we have the hair salon series, and then we have the lab series, which is an example of the experimental play.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned just now about testing and evaluating your apps. Can you talk a little bit about that process? How does that work for you guys?
Yes, we work together with kids. We both invite kids to our studio in Stockholm and our studio in San Francisco. And we also go out to schools and to sometimes even kids' homes. And we start very early on in our production process with just meeting with kids and looking at how they are playing within a certain play pattern. So we often buy in physical toys within that represents the play pattern, and we try to understand, like, what is it in this play pattern that makes kids so engaged in it? What is it that makes kids go back to this toy over and over again? And when we think that we have understood what it is, then we start building a digital prototype. And then throughout the production process, we come back to kids and we test our products with kids. And so I often say that one of the most difficult jobs at Toca Boca is the job of our play designers, because they are carrying the vision for the product throughout the entire production process. But if you compare it to many other visionary roles, at Toca Boca, the play designers is at the end at the full discretion of the kids. So the final kids tests are often the times where Emil, one of our co-founders, will call me and say, like, I think we need to go back and continue the development process because we just had a kids test and we need to add these aspects to ensure that it's really, really fulfilling the play promise that we have for this product. And so in the startup world, many people like to talk about minimum viable products. I often refer to our products as maximum viable products because we don't want to go to market with anything that we do not think really uphold the quality that we want all of our products to represent. And that's the quality that we feel proud of and that we also think that kids deserve. Because, I mean, if you're looking for a toy and you're trying out a new toy and it's not fun, like, why would you ever go back to that toy?
Mm-hmm. I think that your dedication to that is really apparent in the quality and in the play value and in the enjoyment that kids get out of playing your apps. I can totally see that. Do you ever find that there are differences in the ways that the kids in Sweden play with the apps versus the way that the kids in the US play with the apps, or do you find that it's kind of universal?
I mean, one of the things that one of the assumptions that Emil and Björn made very early on is that we're more alike when we are kids than when we're adults everywhere. So, and that there are these very old play patterns and classical toys that resonates with kids all over the world. And so therefore it should be possible to design the same products for kids all around the world. And we have on and off done kids testing in San Francisco, but we're now doing it in a more structured way. And we're just in the process of finding out, like, are there actually big differences when we do these kids testing? But I haven't found throughout my period at Toca Boca that there is a huge difference when I see kids playing with our products in the US or in Sweden or any other country, really.
And I feel like maybe one of the reasons for that is the way that you've made them not language specific, and so there's a lot more flexibility with that. Would you say that's true too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that enables us also to release our products to the entire world at the same time.
And I think that it lends a real grace to the apps to be able to know that they are well designed enough that you don't have to have a narrator to explain what's going on or anything like that. So I really appreciate that about your apps, and the fact that you're doing that not only for the very youngest users but also for anybody of any age who uses your apps, that you're including that capacity.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to looking at our products as toys. Few toys have any language to them when you buy them. And so why would a digital toy be different from a physical toy in that aspect?
Exactly. You guys also do a really wonderful job of making your games gender neutral and very diverse on lots of different levels. Can you talk a little bit about how and why you do that?
Yeah, it really comes from us from a belief that stereotyping in toys is very limiting. And we want to make products for kids, not boys, not girls, just kids. And our products, we start working from the start with all products being gender neutral. And then over the years, we have developed that into a broader sense of diversity. We've tried to make it as broad as possible while still being able to take it on. So just not addressing the most obvious things for us, which are things like gender, skin tone, hair texture, and age, but also things such as culture, physical abilities, family structures, and body shape, just to name a few. And this was the central theme to our annual company trip, a couple of years ago. And so we've had a group internally that have developed an internal way of how we look at diversity when we develop our products and our marketing. And also we have an external diversity board that we can use as a sounding board whenever we have questions around anything that we develop on the topic of diversity. This just comes from our belief that kids should have the opportunity to play how they want and see representations of themselves, because play impacts kids' understanding of the world around them. And if we're going to be a more inclusive society, it's just important that toys and media stays away from stereotyping for kids.
I really love that your main goal behind your testing is to find out like what parts of this are the kids really engaged in, right? It's not so much like what are we going to teach the kids, or like what any of those questions that I feel like come through really strongly in other companies' apps, but just this idea that like what is it that the kids like and what is motivating to them. I think that's and where do they see themselves in the apps, which motivates them to come back and play over and over and over. I just think it's fantastic. One last question that I like to talk about for a little while is this question of joint media engagement. It's one of the topics that I've talked about in every episode so far of the App Fairy podcast. And I know that your apps, Toca Store, Tea Party, and Birthday Party, are apps that really were designed to work best with two people playing. And so those are some, like when I try to give examples of really ideal ways to use joint media engagement, those are actually some of the ones that I like to point out. Are there other ways that the other apps that you have also encourage joint media engagement that you designed specifically for that reason?
Yeah, I think if we look at the live series, what we're seeing there is that kids play with it both individually and together, and they also share with each other the stories that they are telling and that they are role-playing with the products. And that Toca Life is really a way for kids to be creative and to express who they are and what is going on in their life. And so I think that's at the core of all good role-playing experiences.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have a favorite Toca Boca app?
It is very, very, very difficult to choose. I would say that at the moment it is Toca Life Hospital, because it is overall the Toca Life series. But if I was forced to choose one product there, it's Toca Life Hospital, because of the theme that is a classical theme within play for kids, and that it's also, I think it's an illustration of where we were brave of taking on things that happens in a hospital environment that many other companies I think would have stayed away from. And so that opens up to playing with in a role play environment with areas of the hospital which might not, always be very giggly and funny from an adult perspective, but where kids find opportunities to explore and discover, and really, again, identify like how they feel when they are in a hospital environment.
Yeah, I think I just recently read the interview that was talking about the hospital app, and how there's even an aspect to talk about death and dying within the hospital app. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
I think that's really important. Because you're right that the way that kids learn about the world is through play. And so if we don't give them opportunities to talk about all the different aspects of life, then they can't work through those. I think it's incredible that you've given them that opportunity. I
think that's really a testament to the amazing sort of creative vision that we have at Toca Boca, and everyone working on the Toca Life series and pushing the envelope for what we can do within that play pattern.
Mm-hmm. My daughter and I were recently in the emergency room and had a conversation with one of the nurses there, whose job it is to improve the life experience of the children who are in the hospital for any length of time. And she talked about how the parents are frequently asking her if she has app recommendations. And so I'm planning to give them a list of apps that they can recommend, and Toca Life Hospital will definitely be at the top of the list, because I think that if you've got kids who especially are spending time in the hospital, whether that's for a couple of hours in the emergency room or whether that's on a longer term basis, I think that being able to actually play through that is just an awesome opportunity and a great use of technology. So thank you very much for creating that app.
No, thank you for putting together the list of recommendations to the hospital. We found that that is one of the many places where our products and apps in general really helps kids in very special circumstances. And we've also had a little while back, we had an organization that works with both kids and adults with disabilities, sharing their experience of how they have used our apps working with their kids. And it was extraordinary to see, just to the extent you can see kids playing with apps that are unable to play with physical toys, and their reaction when they get to participate in play it's mind-blogging, and it's very, very touching.
I have a huge smile on my face just visualizing that, because I love that feeling that look on kids' faces when they have that sense of pure joy that comes from true play. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Caroline. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
No, this is a great, thank you very much for taking the time, Carissa.
You're welcome. And again, if anybody wants to sign up for your email newsletter, they can do that at tocaboca.com.
Yes. And
I'll be sure to put a link to that on my App Fairy website too. So thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Uh-oh, guys, I think I hear that. Oh, no, here she comes again. Hey, everyone, I'm back. Hi, Bad App Fairy. We've got a really full episode here today, and I'm not really sure we have any time to talk about what not to look for in an app. Not to look for? What are you talking about? I thought people here wanted to find bad apps. That's why I've been coming on the show and giving my recommendations. Well, no, I think people would really rather spend their time and money on good apps, not on bad ones. You mean I've been coming on here with my recommendations every episode and everyone's just been ignoring my advice? Oh, why am I wasting my time here then? Well, I think people are listening to your advice. They're just, doing the opposite of what you suggest. You mean they're avoiding all those bad app qualities that I've so carefully chosen? This is tragic. What a lost opportunity. Fine. Then this will be my last bad app message, and you're all on your own to find the very worst apps you can find without my help. See how far you get doing the opposite of what I... Fine. Maybe if I talk all fancy, you'll finally take me seriously. So, for this episode, I'm going to talk about, let's see, extrinsic motivators. Those are some really big words. But in this case, it really means those apps that use cheering sounds or confetti or exploding stars every time the user gets a right answer. On the one hand, you have app makers like Toca Boca here who don't even have right or wrong answers in their apps. Clearly, they are not going to qualify for my bad app stamp of disapproval. And then there are apps where there are right and wrong answers, but they just reward the user simply by being able to advance to the next level, or maybe with a little quiet surprise box to open and receive a new item to play with. And those are also not going to get my bad app stamp of disapproval. Then there are the top baddies in this category who literally have recordings of kids cheering and exploding stars and confetti totally cluttering up the screen every time the kid gets a little answer right. Suddenly, the only reason those kids are trying to get the right answer is to see and hear all that mess, or maybe avoid the embarrassing wah-wah sounds of failure. I'd say if you're looking for a bad app, one with confetti and stars might be the bad app you're looking for, or it might actually be an okay app, but I like to think of these stars and cheering as a little hint that maybe this app needs some closer examination because it just might be a bad app gem. Okay, well, thanks very much, Bad App Harry. It's been great having your help with the show. Well, good luck finding bad apps without me. I'm out of here. Bye, Bad App Fairy. Today's episode is kind of a bonus episode, and we get to talk with two different people from Toca Boca. I am really excited to have the opportunity to also chat with Petter Karlsson, one of Toca Boca's play designers, about their whole process. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Petter.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm really glad to be on.
Can you tell me a little bit about Toca Boca's technique for developing an app from sort of just a general concept into something that kids can actually play on the screen? Like, how does that work? Is there a consistent process each time, or does each app develop organically unique? Tell us a little bit about that.
So basically, I would like to talk about, like, there's this sort of like a concept phase, maybe, and the pre-production phase, and the production phase. But if I would start, I would say just these bigger blocks that are always happening again and again is that you always start with a vision for something. So it could be the vision of, let's make an app that is where you can cut hair, or it could be like an app where you do food, or it could be like the Toca Live series that I work with, and an app where you can role play about everyday life. I mean, the vision can of course be much more granular and big and whatever, but it's basically like you just have to start with this idea that sort of, and then build from that. And then you go on into more like creating a concept out of this. So let's say, as I work with the Toca Live series, how should this work? Well, maybe you have some figures and they have homes, and maybe you have also like this overview map and these houses where you can put the figures in and transport them on this map between different locations. And then maybe also like more talking about the theme. So is this an app about a hospital? Okay, so the concept could also describe like, well, it's a hospital, it's a kid's world, it's this and that, but still it's still, I mean, it's more concrete than the the vision, of course, more describing what this actually could be. And then, of course, all of these stages are like the vision and the concept, etc. is in different, depending on which team it is, it's signed off by different stakeholders. So you know, like, okay, so we have as a play designer, I have approval from maybe a creative director or someone to move on to the next stage. Like, depending on what you're doing, the concept could also be more in sort of like a pre-production phase that includes building prototypes. It could be paper prototypes, etc. When you work with an app that is in a series like I do, you don't need to prototype as much, because we know, like, kids already know, we already know that kids understand sort of like the basic interactions of this app. Of course, if you introduce new things, that needs to be tested, but the core things work. The core things, we know that the core things are in place. Where differently would be like make, as an example, an app like Toca Blocks or Nature or something. First time you make it, and like Toca Blocks, where you build these incredible worlds with square blocks that sticks to each other, then you of course need to test early prototypes and see, does this work? Is this understandable? And then move on from there.
Did you say that some of the prototypes that you make are actually paper prototypes?
I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Sometimes different methods are used. I mean, absolutely, one method can definitely be paper prototypes, and there are some beautiful examples that I think you can see online of where Chris Lindgren talks about how they made Toca Boca, which is an app about, like, you're this girl who likes to scare her family dressed up as a ghost, and how you like hide between, and then you have that on paper before it's anything else, and playing out with kids. I mean, basically, the adult or whatever, the designer, you are sort of the computer, and then the kid plays around with these figures, and then you have to sort of create the interaction.
That's
or
so
as
cool.
I have done, like in Toca. It is also very simple.
Yeah.
But it's very basic of game. If you have worked with game design before, but it's a very classic thing to do in game design, that you just make the stuff in paper. Like, basics of game design is they should always test as much as you possibly can, because you will always learn things. And the big difference for us making apps for kids is that, well, we surely should play the apps ourselves and test them ourselves, but we won't see the same things our kids. So, of course, you can test on paper. I mean, I did that. There is a secret lab in the basement of the hospital, and just doing very simple things, even if that's on paper. And they find on this paper that I put out in front of them, like, basically the whole location is already drawn, but it's not put in the app yet. And they look at it and they play with it, but with paper figures on top. And then I ask them about how the interaction is and stuff like that, and maybe inviting them to tap on one of the buttons, even if this is just on paper. And then when they did that, I just put a whole new block of paper next to it, like unraveling this secret lab, and just seeing, because this was going to happen in the app, like when you have unlocked the puzzle, then this new complete location unlocks. And the whole idea of that was, like, this will hopefully create excitement.
Yeah.
And when we did it even on paper, they were like, what is this? So then we knew, like, if this happens in the app, kids will be, like, more amazed than this. So it all depends on what you're doing. Like,
right.
if your whole idea is to do a very advanced 3D game, then it's really hard to make it on paper.
Right. Well, and I've talked to app designers who say one of the struggles that they have with when they're trying to do playtesting with kids is that they had to get the app developed to a certain point before they can even try testing it with kids. And I really like this idea of just saying, no, let's just, like, don't even work on the, like, programming part of it. Just cut it out in paper and see if the concept works first. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, definitely. I mean, but this depends. And when you try it with paper, like, one thing I think is really very important to do is, like, okay, so we have drawn the scene, and then we have drawn the the stalls of the stable app where the horses are, but we remove all the horses and everything, and then we just show them this location printed out in front of them. And then I just ask them, like, where do you think this is? And if they are somewhat familiar with that stalls exist, hopefully they will say yes. But if they're like horse lovers and don't agree that this looks like stalls, if that's not what they're like instantly saying, then we have failed.
Right.
In this early phase, some other things we do. You can play with other stuff. It could even be apps. I haven't done a lot of like playing competitors apps. I know a lot of people who have played my apps at other companies. I'm not, and that's not. I mean, it's just for inspiration and see what themes works and how people are. Just to learn, like how are kids interacting with this type of interaction? There's nothing wrong with that. Also, what we have done a lot is playing with. So I work with Toca Life, who is like basically a play set, but in digital form. And then we have played a lot with like doll houses and Playmobil and stuff like that to see. Okay, so we're going to make an app about the hospital. Okay, then we have a big like hospital Playmobil set and see how are kids interacting with this, how are kids, what types of stories are interesting, and sometimes we learn very little and sometimes we learn a lot of things, like this. We had this really nice learning when we were going to make a vacation app, going in an airplane, going to a hotel and the beach and whatever in some warm country. And the thing we grasped after a few play sessions with kids was that you always went on vacation with your family. I mean, even when playing, that was important. Like, oh, this is a family, they're going on vacation. So that was something we kept, and then we included like different kinds of families, like single parent or whatever. But it's also really fun to do this early type of testing, because it's very different from when you have your own prototype. When this is more like inspiration or finding like very vague points, you're really like, you can't guarantee that you will get any like this big eureka moment or finding. It's just more like exploratory even for us, but it's really nice. So then to continue, like, then let's say you can build a digital prototype, then you build a digital prototype, like preferably as soon as possible. When we made this stable app, then we made a early prototype of like, okay, so there's a new interaction of how to ride on horses. So then we just need to make we haven't had horses before, so we need to make a quick design of a horse and how that technically will work. And then maybe we don't have anything else in the app than a few horses and saddles and some characters, and the locations are quite empty otherwise, because we don't even have the graphics for it. We put in those things. We test that as early as possible to see, is this understandable? Sometimes the answer will be, from your observation, like, no, it's not, they're not getting this at all. In this case with the horses, that was one of the occasions when we have tested stuff, and it was just instantly very rare, felt very natural, like, okay, it's a horse, what are you doing with it? And this is not asking the kids what they're doing, because that's, when I talked about the paper play testing and stuff, asking them questions, that of course something we do. But in general, when we test digital, we always observe much more than talking, and preferably not ask any questions or stuff or giving them any goals what they should do, just giving them the app and letting them play. So in the instance of this horse thing, try and see, okay, we are introducing horses and we're doing an app about horses, it better work.
Right.
Otherwise, we really need to figure this stuff out here. And just saying like, okay, it's a horse, and they have a character, and the first thing they do is like they drag the character on the horse, and then they drag the horse to move the horse around with the character on top. And it just was very natural. And there's a saddle on the ground, and then they take the saddle and put it on the horse. I mean, that is very like that is a very happy moment as a designer.
I hear in the words that you're saying that you guys really understand the importance of letting kids sort of get lost in the flow of play without any adults directing them or telling them what to do or any of that, because that's really where the true play comes from. And that's one of the things that I really, really appreciate about Toca Boca apps, is that I feel like it's apparent in the design of your apps that this is something that you pay attention to and that you value highly.
I think one of the like in the DNA of Toca Boca, so to say, that is, I don't know, like I don't feel this is like this untold secret. It was just one of these few things that when I started, I'm like, wait, this is really one of those core things, and it's just that you have to test with kids, and if the kids are liking it, then it's good. And if not, then you're off. Like then you're doing something wrong. And this might sound like so obvious, but when you see some of the stuff out on the market for kids, then you're like, who tested this? And I'm like, I'm new in the business. I'm like, I can't. I'm just happy to be on board on this ship now and just like understand like, okay, this is the idea. But the thing is like that has been the case from the start.
Yeah.
That it needs to work. I mean, well, this is also sort of obvious. Like, if you're designing for adults or teens or older people, etc., the stuff needs to work for your audience. It's like that's kind of clear. But in this case, it's like, well, test it with kids. If they laugh, it's probably good.
Right.
And if you're angry because this hat doesn't fit on this smaller character, and they're super annoyed by it, you should probably change that. Of course, like you see some things bad, you should change it, make sure you test it again. Did it work better or worse now? And then you go on. And then, so that's like, you have good, bad, and then you have my favorite one, which is I'm actually lying on the floor laughing because the kids are. And it's like, this is a big part of the reason why I come to work. So I just, like, one of the stories is like when we did this stable app and these two like really horse-loving kids, they were just like first times trying out to play with the horses in the app, and they're like, we when you move the characters in the scene without the horses, they move in a certain, like the screen follows scrolling in a certain speed. Mm-hmm. But when you're on a horse or a bike or something, it scrolls much faster. So, and then both kids had like, they were playing on the same iPad, both had a horse each, and like dragging in like super speed to one was dragging to the left, one was dragging to the right, and sort of the first one who dragged, then the other one like automatically followed. And they were sort of fighting, but they were fighting like giggling and right. Then hysterically laughing. And me and Chris, who joined that session, we were like, I couldn't stand up because they were having so much fun and I was having so much fun. I mean, in one way, we know we can be very like pragmatic about it, and like now we know this will be a product that will work. But I mean, that's not really what I care about. I care about this, like, is this wholesome and fun? And clearly, apparently, this was also unexpected, like that specifically this would be as fun. But it was. And it's just like, I mean, I can't help like really just smiling sharing the story with you now, because that's like, this is really why I go to work.
I totally get what you're saying, because those magic moments, those are what I look for when I am testing an app too. Like if I find a new app in the App Store and I want to try it out with my kids, those magic moments, that's what I look for. And so I think it's awesome that you guys are looking for that before you've even released it into the App Store. That means that you're doing something right, I think. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk us about that whole process that you guys go through, and about the underlying philosophy that really threads through everything that you guys put out. And
I mean, this was a very simplified version, I would say.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it goes more into it than that. And I mean, I just want to point that out, that it's like it's easy for me to talk about, like, I'm one of the people like maybe carrying the idea and looking for that the app should include this from the start, and making sure that it actually works and has all these components in the end. But I mean, without animators, like artists, like the artists doing the illustration, and the developers and the producer in the team, everyone is, I don't know, like I spoke to people of this, I don't know how unique it is, but we have a very open environment within the team, that everyone is able to lay forward their ideas, may it be interaction feature, or could we have this kind of character, could it be this smooth, like everyone is so involved in creating this together, like everyone is caring about this sort of baby or whatever we're making together. So like it's never one person's job, and of course everyone is like making their their own piece of the puzzle. But even more importantly, you have to have people in a culture that is like creative and fun, and people who wants to work with each other to create like something bigger. That needs to be said as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that when you can create that culture in your workplace that really thrives on joy, then you're on the right track. So did you have any other last little bits you wanted to add?
I do want to add something. I was just sidetracking.
That's fine.
I just spent the weekend in Helsinki together with our sort of kids and play researcher Chris Lindgren and another play director, is her title now, Willow Melbrat, for an amazing event called like Designing for Children Guide, and it's available at childrensdesignguide.org. And it was about 80 people from many parts of the world, mainly Europe and US, interaction designers, experts in psychology, many things, and also designers, both non-digital and digital designers. And everyone just came together for this weekend in Helsinki to create guidelines to create better designs for kids. But not only like just guidelines. Everything was based upon the UN children's rights and ethics. So everything was done based on what UNICEF stands for. The event was also created together with UNICEF. So on Sunday we came, on Friday, and on Sunday we left. Then with everything we had done published on this website, childrensdesignguide.org. So there you can find like 10 main principles that are really important and good to think about if you're designing towards kids, may it be digital or non-digital. And then apart from those 10 principles, there's also about 10 principles each in 4 more areas. So those areas are like supporting well-being and healthy psychological and cognitive development. Another one was nurturing the child as a social being and citizen. Another one was encouraging self-expression, creativity, learning, and play. And the last one was about more like ensuring safety and privacy. So I really encourage you to check in and look on this. The idea for this is to have more meetups, to engage on Twitter and everywhere on the hashtag, to continue developing these principles. But I really encourage people to check them out, because I think I learned so much by just participating in this event.
Oh my gosh, what a great resource. I look forward to exploring that.
It was so fun to talk to you. It was really, really fun. I always get really excited when remembering the stuff from work that is like most fun. So that was one of these moments.
Good. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, because I enjoyed hearing about it. It's always my favorite to hear about designers that really care about looking for those magic golden moments when designing for kids. So thank you so much for talking with us today, Petter. And I look forward to seeing what Toca Boca comes out with next.
You're more than welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A quick announcement. This will be the last App Fairy podcast for this season. We're going to take some time to evaluate how this project has been going and whether we want to continue to create more episodes. So if you love this podcast and want to hear more interviews with high-quality app makers, please take a moment to fill out our survey at www.appfairy.org/survey. It will really mean the world to us to hear from listeners. And as a thank you, I will personally mail you a package of awesome App Maker and App Fairy swag to everyone who fills out the survey for as long as supplies last. And I've got a nice stash sitting in my office waiting to be mailed out to some lucky viewers. I've got postcards, I've got pencils, I've got stickers, such cute stickers. So go ahead and fill out the survey and I'll mail you some awesome prizes. I'm sure that you'll love the swag, but even more, you'll love being able to help the App Fairy decide whether or not we will continue to make more episodes. Thanks so much. Your feedback would be much appreciated. One more quick note. I am a member of a group of podcasters for children called Kids Listen. If you love the App Fairy and you'd like to discover more great podcasts for kids and families, be sure to check out their webpage or download their free app at www.kidslisten.org. The App Fairy podcast is a production of the Madison Public Library and is sponsored by the Heising Simons Foundation and the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, a nonprofit research and innovation lab dedicated to advancing children's learning in a digital age. Visit cooneycenter.org for more information about the work they do. If you'd like more information about the podcast, check out our website at www.appfairy.org and be sure to check out our survey. Also on the website, you can find lots of goodies about this episode and about Toca Boca, and I think that you'll really like them. A big thanks to Audrey Martinovich, our audio engineer, David Seste, who created our theme music, and Hannah Sandvold, who designed our fantastic artwork and brought the App Fairy to life. My name is Carissa Christner. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening all the way till the end of this podcast, because now, of course, you get to hear about this episode's hidden gem. And this one is The White Book by Mini Bombo. That's MINIBOMBO, Mini Bombo. This is one of my favorite apps for even the youngest app users. It's based on a book of the same name. It's called The White Book. And the app invites kids to scribble all over a white screen with different colors of digital paint just using their fingers. And when they do, the white outline of an animal will magically appear, like mystery writing with lemon juice. Once the screen has been more or less completely colored, the animal comes to life with a funny little animation that eventually helps the animal to walk off the screen, making another white canvas to paint on and discover a whole new animal. The action is entertaining enough for preschool kids, and it's entertaining enough to keep parents from getting too bored. And the painting action is simple enough for even a really young toddler to manage. I really love how the actions in this app help move the story forward, but you don't have to choose paints in any particular order. You can choose whichever ones you like. You can even use the same color of paint over and over and over and get the same animal result if you really love that particular color or that particular animal. The design of this app is really clean and modern, and if you love the app, be sure to check out the book, The White Book, and also other titles by the Mini Bombo publisher. They do really awesome books for little kids too. So I hope you enjoy this hidden gem. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.